Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Diamond, your State Farm Insurance Agent, Pizza Villa in DeKalb, Elder Care Services of DeKalb County, The Junction Eating Place in DeKalb, and my insurance guy, Mike DeVito in Sycamore.
And welcome into TD Ryan Unleashed News Podcast number 4. Honored and privileged to have with us State Representative Jeff Keicher joining us today. Jeff, how you doing, my friend?
I am so good. I'm blessed to be here.
And like an oak tree over there in the corner, it's Dan Lynch, again, the dedicated newsman and all-around good person. Dan, how you doing, buddy?
Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are Sam Cooke's on.
Oh, yes. I heard that somewhere.
Mr. Soul, King of Soul.
There you go. So we're going to talk about some local news, but then, Jeff, we want to get your slant on that as well, because we know everything you do ties into people in DeKalb and Sycamore in DeKalb County. So we're going to start with a couple local news and then get on to some, for instance, the budget, our state budget as well. But Dan, you had something local. What do you got there, my friend?
Well, last night, unfortunately, DeKalb police are investigating gunshots fired. This was in the vicinity of 800 Spiros Court near Casey's, just west of North Annie Glidden. Police were called at about 11:30 last evening. Multiple 911 callers say they initially heard males arguing before the shots. 2 casings were located near 857 Spiros. According to scanner chatter, a male was found near 915 Spiros with a gunshot wound. Other reports say the male was shot in the hand. No arrests have been announced.
But, you know, Jeff, we're seeing this more and more. We were talking to Mayor Barnes about this, where nowadays, it used to be back in the day, you get an argument with somebody, you might have a fist fight, would be the worst case. But now people go right to get their gun and they're going to shoot somebody over some little petty argument.
Yeah. And it's worse in the summer. You know, we watch this happen, especially in Chicago over the summer. And I hadn't heard that story yet, Dan. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. And it's disappointing, right? Why people think that that's the answer to solving the problems, I can't understand. You know, guns are so easily accessible these days, and there's a huge gun debate taking place in the state of Illinois about who should have a concealed carry and what have you, and what we consistently come back to. And I think this will wind up being revealed once the investigation is done, because it usually is these types of crimes are committed by people who shouldn't have guns. They aren't FOID card holders. They aren't licensed concealed carry folks. They're people who got the guns illegally and shouldn't have possession of them in the first place. And we've got to buckle down with that. I think it was Sheriff Tom Dart, might be going back 2 years or so. He did a survey of all the information they had on FOID cards in Cook County and came to the conclusion that they have over 35,000, I believe the number was, revoked FOID cards in the city of Chicago and Cook County. So again, these are people that should not have firearms, and none of them have been approached by law enforcement to make sure there's no firearms in the home. So we've got a situation where we aren't enforcing what's on the books already to limit the exposure that we have to having these things happen.
Yeah, and a lot of responsible gun owners. For instance, you're looking at one right there.
Yeah.
Dan, we talked about Dan, how he keeps his guns safe from the children and how important that is.
The Second Amendment's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Not a lot of ambiguity.
All right, very good. Now, another issue, of course, has been the local, the local grocery tax. And we learned about this. We learned a lot from Alderman Carlson, who was in here telling us that I didn't realize this tax has been around for 30 years, right, Jeff? So This is not like this is a new tax or something. And in January, it'll go away. And I have a list here. I'm not going to do the whole list, but at least 25, 30 other cities that have decided not to, that will reinstate the 1% tax after the first. So what is this? Is this a political move? Because obviously Keicher did this to make himself look good and then left all the responsibility to the towns themselves, the cities themselves.
It did. And what's funny is, so the state of Illinois had been charging and collecting a grocery tax, and 100% of that went back to the local unit of government. The state didn't keep any of it. So 1% on your tax, or 1% tax on your groceries, and that's it.
But all that's coming back to your...
Well, and what the governor did is he pushed a move to abolish the tax at the state level and opened a window where local cities and municipalities could pass a bill and say, we're going to keep it. And they have until December 31st of this year to make that decision happen. And for many communities, I think DeKalb is one of them, that grocery tax is $800,000.
Yeah.
For most people, most families on an individual basis, 1% tax on $400 of groceries is $4, right? It's not a pocketbook breaker.
That's why I question why anybody really drive somewhere else. If it's $4, they're going to drive somewhere to get the groceries.
And so the dodge and the switch with it is the state used to put purely 1%, that 1% tax back into the pockets of the communities so they could spend it on law enforcement and pensions and keeping our communities safe. What he did, he opened this window, and now the state is collecting on behalf of the communities because it's not a state initiative. So now guess what? The state takes a 3% spiff right off the top for every collection that it's had. The state is now making money off of cities that decide to charge a sales tax. And it's the same 1% sales tax.
Is that right?
Yeah.
A little something off the top for themselves.
And the same year that passed, we passed, I think it was $1.8 billion in other taxes instead of the grocery tax. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth.
All right. Again, just naming some of the towns that have Elburn, Hampshire, Huntley, Montgomery, North Aurora, South Elgin, Sugar Grove, that's where my wife was born, Buffalo Grove, Deer. I mean, I could go on and on. But so we're not alone with the 1%. But we wanted to finally put that to bed, right? Dan, what do you got to say about that?
Well, SNAP, EBT cards are exempt from this.
Yeah, and we should point that out, right? Yeah.
And the other one where you buy the milk or when you're shopping for milk
program.
Yeah. Milk and butter. WIC is also.
I believe Women and Infant Children, I believe is the acronym.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that, I don't want to say constituency, but they're not affected.
Yeah. Right. And I'm going to totally take a turn on this. You mentioned your wife is from Sugar Grove, and I represent Sugar Grove right now. And I just recently learned, I believe it is the wife of the Earl of Sandwich in England was born and raised in Sugar Grove.
Is that right?
Yeah. She's a countess or a duchess in England. And she's from Sugar Grove. Graduated high school in like 1990 or 94. So if somebody out there wants to look it up, go ahead.
And I was mentioning your what ground you cover here, and I think the easiest way to cover this is where Jeff is going to have public office meetings, office hours during the summer. Burlington, Hampshire, Kingville, Cortland, Hinckley, Maple Park, Algonquin, Pine Grove, and Big Rock.
Correct.
So you represent all those different areas.
Hour and a half north to south.
All right. An hour and a half.
Hour and a half north to south. Yeah. The Democrats really did a number on us, and the reason I say Democrats, listen, Republicans are doing it in other states. Democrats happen to have done it here. We being the House Republicans filed a lawsuit this past year that was dismissed by the Democrat-controlled Illinois Supreme Court. Mathematically, there are 51 legislative districts in the state of Illinois that could not be drawn more partisan than they are. It is mathematically, and I'm not just talking votes coming in, mathematically, geographically, the experts that are nonpartisan that look at it, Illinois has 51 districts that could not be drawn any more partisan, and thereby has won the crown of the most gerrymandered map ever in history for United States legislative districts.
Right.
Yes.
Because I thought I read somewhere in your writings that Democrats won, they got the majority of the House again, but Republicans got more votes? Did you say that?
So in 2022, Illinois, I think Republicans statewide. So if we pooled all the votes statewide, Republicans got, I believe it was 80,000 more votes than Democrats in the state of Illinois.
Is that right?
But they won 78 seats and we won 40.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We're covering
2-1. 2-1. Fighting uphill battles down there for you guys. I hope you appreciate it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the bills getting passed and how difficult that is, because I have a great thing on Illinois lawmakers pass almost 100 bills on the final day, right? So, I mean, that's ridiculous. But, Dan, what else you got, Dan? A local flavor?
Local. Okay. Well, let's see. DeKalb County is among 17 in Illinois where the state health department has confirmed the presence of West Nile virus in mosquito samples. Maybe that's not a big deal. This is every year.
Every year it comes out. It's a headline.
Every year it comes out. Can I go back to the Second Amendment?
Yeah.
State of Illinois now has a full month to respond to plaintiffs suing the state over the gun and magazine ban, which Jeff touched on. Plaintiffs groups filed their briefs earlier this month in the appeals court, supporting the district's court's finding the law violated the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. The appeals court granted the state a delay, which will be to respond by July 28th. So this is over the high capacity.
Yeah.
You buy a gun and you get a little magazine and it has 10 or 12 or
sometimes
15?
more. Yeah.
What is the threshold now?
I don't even know what I wouldn't want to tell you because I've seen so many different numbers and iterations of this. I wouldn't want to tell you exactly what. Don't rely on me for that.
Okay, well, I have a double stack, and I think you can get 16 bullets in mine.
Okay.
So I guess I'm in violation.
Yeah, there is a maximum threshold in the statute, but I don't remember exactly what the number was.
Do you ever put 16 bullets in? Do you ever?
Not anymore.
I don't
Not anymore. Not anymore.
I don't because I don't want to ruin the springs in the magazine. I don't even use this thing. I mean, I think I bought it for $500 10 years ago, and it's been in my pistol safe.
Okay,
I mean,
good.
And you know what's interesting? So a couple weeks ago, we heard about the tragedy that happened up in Minnesota, and God rest their souls. It should have never happened. It shouldn't. Those threats like that should never happen to a legislator, or a city manager, or city school district. Yeah. It infringes on our ability to have a free society, and I think everybody probably recalls that went through something not quite that extreme a year ago. We had to cancel our senior fair, right? So what surprised me this time that did happen last year when all that had happened is how many people, Republicans and Democrats alike, got a hold of me and said, "Are you carrying? Are you carrying?" Not that they wanted an answer, but they wanted to make sure I was safe. Right. And I think that is soaking into our ether of our society, and people are more and more thinking that they have to defend themselves. And I think that's part enabled by, especially in Illinois, some of the less than safe policies that have been passed by progressives over the past couple of years, where people are really worried about whether law enforcement can respond. Now, here in DeKalb County, we have awesome law enforcement. We have people that I worship the ground they walk on. They're great people. They're great citizens and stewards to our people in this county. But, you know, in general, Illinois has done law enforcement a disservice by taking away their ability to discern right from wrong and act on what they've been trained to act on.
All right, very good. Again, we have a lot to get to, and I just want to touch on the budget because, again, I had some numbers here from a press release, and that is that the new budget, $55.2 billion, increased state spending by $2 billion, $1 billion in tax hikes. And under Governor Pritzker, in the 6 years he's been in office, the budget started at $40 billion, now it's at $55 billion, a 38% increase in 6 years. And that's just mind-boggling, those numbers.
And I want to resonate on that a little bit. When I came in, it was 40. Now it's 52 billion. And I came in 2018. So this is going to be fiscal year 2026. So that's going to be 6 fiscal years, right? 7 fiscal years because it kicks in at the end of this. Anyway, 6 fiscal years, we've gone up from 40 billion now to 55 billion. We don't have a revenue problem in this state. We have a spending problem. And what I have seen, and the immigrant health plan that we have, the abortion health care plan that we have in the state of Illinois, things that Democrats are spending on that they feel are social issues that they want to address, are taking out of the pockets programs that we've committed to, like Meals on Wheels, like adults with disabilities, like the backlog of the PUNS list, like some of the library funding that's out there. What's funny is they increased, the need was $2 to increase the assistance, the DSP rate for assistance that help those with disabilities. They gave them 50 cents. But you know what they did to make it right? They lowered the amount of hours that they could work. So they actually took money out of their pockets by giving them 50 cents more an hour. They reduced the amount of hours that these people could work. It's just crazy math like that they want to do it to be able to say there's social justice out there, yet they're defeating their own purpose by walking away from social programs, basic core programs that support our most vulnerable and our most needy by not funding them fully, even though we've committed to them 40, 50 years ago.
All right, very good. Do I have one more? Because I got to get this one because my wife wants to know about this, and that's a service tax. Now, I cut out a cartoon, of course, where people can't hear this on the podcast, but basically it's the J.B. Pritzker stealing money out of their purse while they're watching television. But tell us about the service tax. What exactly does that mean when we start with it?
Yeah, so right now in the state of Illinois, you pay a sales tax based on products. So if you buy something at Menards, if you buy something at Lowe's, you pay a sales tax on that. We talked about the groceries. What you don't pay a tax on is service. Dry cleaners, lawyers, repair firms, you go to the movies, tanning beds. You don't pay a sales tax on that. So what prior to this, and this has been talked about for many years because In a more service-based economy, it does a lot more to the dollars coming in, frankly, if you don't adapt to what a service economy is. So there is somewhat of a logic to it. Where the logic doesn't apply is charging the same rate, right?
Well, how are they? What are they going to be? Will it be a transaction per transaction, or how will they?
Yes. So based on the total transaction, that percentage would still apply. And I believe the final number that I saw on the proposal was 6.25%. Right now it's 6.75%. You're just raking in additional dollars. You're not balancing out where the money's coming from. So Republicans are adamantly opposed to this. There is no benefit to the Illinois taxpayer from doing this. Arguably, that is more regressive because we have dependent families that are more dependent on some of the services that are out there. And then one of the tricks that they kicked in that's kind of a service base is this delivery tax. So the Democrats in the Senate, and it passed the Senate, did not pass the House, put in to solve the Chicago transit issue, put in $1.50 delivery fee that cannot be disclosed on the receipt. So they're hiding the fee, right? $1.50 on any delivery. So you think Uber Eats, you think Uber, any delivery. UPS, any delivery to your home, and it can't be disclosed.
And it's just hidden in there.
It's just hidden in there. And then the $1.50, guess where it goes? Back to Chicago to support the CTA. So it's a statewide tax only benefiting Chicago. But going back to the sales tax on service, until there's a plan that makes this neutral to Illinoisans, it's not even something to talk about. Right. Illinoisans are overburdened by the different taxes. He passed another $2 billion worth of taxes this past year. Until Illinoisans are less burdened by taxes, which is only going to occur with growing our economy, additional tax increases are a non-starter.
Now, one of our listeners on Facebook asked about the gas tax. Now, I guess you originally had voted for the gas tax. Tell us about that.
And so when we looked at that, the original rate was set in 1992, and it was set at 19 cents per gallon. Hadn't been touched until we changed it in 2019. So almost 30 years worth of the same amount. And during that time, cars began driving more miles per gallon. So you had more road wear, and you were paying at a rate from 1992. Well, simple math says you can't function that way. With that rate, it was going to take 48 years to replace or repair the roads that were in the queue that needed attention. 48 years, right? So we have to do something.
Jetpacks, so we're going to be doing jetpacks then.
Right. So we had to do something. So what we did is there was a calculation back to what if there was a CPI or a price of inflation adjuster in that original 19 cents. We went back to 1992 and calculated what that would be, and it actually came out to be an additional 19 cents, right? So we increased it by 19 cents, and going forward, we said, we're going to put a CPI adjuster on here so that our roads aren't devastated. And one of the biggest complaints when I first came into office that I was receiving were the potholes that were absolutely everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. And I hope people have noticed, with the exception of Route 64, which is being done this year, and I can go into a whole thing on that, every numbered state route in DeKalb County has been repaved since I've been in office. Every single one of them. We've gone county line to county line, up north, down south, east, west. Everyone has been redone. And the only way that has happened, that we've replaced all that, is because we stood up and we said we got to repair the roads. Now, gas tax, nobody likes to pay a tax. I didn't want to vote for it initially. I was really worried about it until I saw the condition of what we were actually facing. And the most fair way to pay for our roads are based on use. So that's what we did.
All right, very good. Dan, what else you got on the state level?
Okay. Illinois Department of Transportation is advising drivers to be on the lookout for pavement failures on roads throughout the state. IDOT said prolonged high temps can cause roads to expand and buckle up or blow out. Pavement failures can be reported by to IDOT by calling 800-452-4368 or by calling police.
Give it a heads up.
I saw a blowout that went viral somewhere.
Yeah.
The one where the car was jumping over it.
And Dukes of
Got some air. Yeah. I saw that.
Style.
Yeah. I think that might have been in Missouri or something.
Yeah. So the oppressive heat.
Yeah. That ain't helping
this week. Big issue. I have one more too. DeKalb
I should
County.
point out they're redoing my street on 10th Street in DeKalb, and I am really impressed. Now the workers not only working in the seat, but when you watch them put the curbs up first, and then the driveways, and now they're doing the road. It's really an art form. It really is. Those guys are artists, and I brought them a bottle of water, and I thank them for what they're doing, and really impressive. So of course it's my street. I know a lot of people in DeKalb may not be getting this, but I wanted to point that out.
But not an easy job. My uncle had a paving business, and it's tough work. It's arduous work, and you're doing it in the summer.
Yeah. All right, now I got another one because this is from our listener, Steve, who wanted to know about the power grid. A very interesting question I never thought of. He says Facebook uses as much energy as DeKalb. This is according to Steve. What is doing about the power grid, and he wanted to know your thoughts on more nuclear energy and why haven't we built more nuclear energy?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
Yeah, if you go back and look, I have worked with former Representative Lance Yednock, current Representative Dave Vela, Senator Sue Rezin on preserving and encouraging growth among our nuclear fleet. The only way ahead for not only this state but this country is nuclear. We need more nuclear capacity. And it's not just from the Facebook and everything, because the same people that are asking, well, what about with Facebook? This is all from the data in the clouds and from our phones that we're using and the information that's going back and forth. If you want to eliminate all that, yeah, okay, we'll live in the Stone Age and we won't need it. But that's not practical, right?
But realistically, could we have a power outage with that? And now with Amazon coming online, will that be even more power being drawn from this area?
Not in Illinois. Illinois as of today, but it's going to change over the next couple of years based on capacity. Illinois is a net exporter of power. And the reason that is, especially up in the northern part, Illinois has more nuclear reactors providing power up on the grid than any place else. One of the biggest things I've defended in the energy sector since I've been here is the Byron Nuclear Station, because that is what provides us a clean, carbon-free base power load. And to his point, yes, we absolutely need to expand this. I was one of the co-sponsors to allow for what's called SMRs, small modular reactors, which are smaller nukes that are basically the size of a tractor trailer and can be modular, again, moved around and used for different things. But the need so quickly developed beyond that we saw the need for full nuclear. And I see in the past week, the state of New York just announced that they'll begin construction of the first one.
Now, people old as dirt like myself remember 3 Mile Island, and we saw what happened in Japan as well with too. So, but are you saying this is safer now? Obviously it's safer, but well, Dan, you have little people at home. What are your thoughts about nuclear power? Do you want more nuclear power stations built in Illinois?
The answer is yes, Dan.
When I flip the switch,
you want it to come out?
I want it to work. I mean, I'm soft at going a day without power. Going 2 hours without power is inconvenient for me.
All right.
And I've also seen a lot of people that are asking this question are electric car drivers, right?
The same person want to know what your thoughts on the solar farms in DeKalb County.
Yeah. So before I leave there, I want to talk about the grid, because the grid is actually of critical importance. So this governor and his progressive tendencies under his ICC, which is the Illinois Commerce Commission, has pushed our power companies, ComEd and Ameren in the southern part and a couple other smaller providers, out of the ability to earn a market rate of return for investment in the grid. So what the result of that has been is investors who invest in that infrastructure in order to earn a return on their money have actually started going to other states. Illinois has lost, since ICC put this into effect, Illinois has lost over 2,000 energy sector employees, both on the power side and the gas side, to other states where projects are actually going on. So right now we've got an issue with solar fields across the state that can't get onto the grid. And why is that? Because these employees are no longer here in Illinois. We have made rules that are, quote, green, which are anything but. They're actually putting more burden on fewer and fewer wires that are aging without providing the dollars to invest and make sure that we're there for the future. So we are going to face a crisis, especially with the governor's push to, by 2035, have the entire state fleet of vehicles battery powered.
Is he sticking with that, or is he?
So far.
Okay.
So far. Yeah.
Hey, what you didn't answer my question. Now, you're okay with the nuclear power though? You're not.
I'm
reluctant.
good.
And you want more solar farms around.
I like diversity. I like coal, nuclear, And I'll even take wind and solar.
All right.
If the market
put that in there.
That's brilliant. And Dan, I've referred to that as an all of the above strategy. And I really do believe that as well. And if we bypass on coal, let's just talk about coal real quick. Everybody thinks coal is dirty. Do you know that Illinois produces some of the highest strength coal, meaning there is more BTUs released from Illinois coal than just about any other coal that's mined in this country? But because of the high sulfur content, we won't force plants to install scrubbers. Instead, what we do is we ship Illinois coal with the exception of Prairie State, which is a whole other hybrid thing I could talk about. We ship it over to Missouri. Missouri burns Illinois coal and then it fumes over to the Illinois side. So we're getting it anyway. Illinois coal in the still functioning coal plants in Illinois is coming from Wyoming. So talk about an energy waste, right?
Wow.
Talk about an energy waste. We can't use our own coal.
Interesting, because in the wintertime, when you're sitting at the railroad tracks, TD, in DeKalb, and there's a train going by with coal, I always thought it was going to the city, to Chicago, to heat dwellings in Chicago. Is that the case, or am I?
I wouldn't want to say where the destination is, right? Because coal, Illinois, especially in our area, is such a transit point for coal coming from the Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota area. I wouldn't want to say where it's destined, but yes, there is mile-long train loads of coal coming to Illinois from Wyoming instead of burning Illinois coal.
So would we say the Illinois coal industry is alive and well then?
It's
under attack.
Fatiguing. It's under attack. I believe the number now is either 4 or 5 coal plants have shuttered. And the problem with that is, I talked about Illinois being number 1 in nuclear. That's in the ComEd territory, which is basically north of I-80. South of I-80 is a power company called Ameren. They have no nukes in their territory. They are 100% dependent on coal, natural gas, wind, and solar. And you get weather like this, and their grid it's tapped.
Wow. All right. Very good. Well, we're covering a lot of ground here. We're talking with State Representative Jeff Keicher about various issues and joined by newsman Dan Lynch. Now, I was telling you how much I love political cartoons. I think they cover so much ground here. And this one is they have Governor Pritzker make an announcement. The budget is balanced, and then an asterisk. There is a $13 billion pension shortage, and they have the pension gorilla up on top of the state capitol there in Illinois. But 2 questions that Trevor wanted to know. What are you doing about fixing Tier 2 pension system? I didn't know what Tier 1 and Tier 2 was. You can explain that, Jeff.
Yeah.
And then Chris wants to know about Tier 2 for firefighters.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? Dan, do you know what Tier 1 and Tier 2 is? I just found out. I didn't know.
I remember reading about it, but I forgot it. But I know Jeff can lay it out.
And this can really get into the weeds. I actually had somebody reach out to the office this week asking a question about what are we doing to address it. And so instead of replying an email, I said, listen, let's talk about it, because it literally could be an hours long conversation just to talk about where things are. So I'm going to try to give an encapsulated answer so I don't eat up all of our time together. So Tier 1 was the traditional Illinois pension. And by the way, the pension debt in the state of Illinois up till about 2006 was about $29 billion. Still a lot, right? Still a lot. And then Rod Blagojevich decided not to pay into the pension for 2 years back to back. And guess what? Those 2 years that he didn't pay were just before the Great Recession. Wow. And so we didn't put money in, and then the value of the dollars that were in the rainy day fund collapsed. And so then that's when all of a sudden we've got 110, 111, and now $131 billion worth of pension debt. It's because Rod wanted to play some games with the budget and pay for other things instead of actually putting money away in the pension fund. And to his credit, not that I'm beating up on Democrats, to his credit, Pat Quinn, governor after him, is the first governor who paid the fully determined amount into the pension up to that point in time. So
Pat Quinn came up with the squeezy pension snake. You remember that? The squeezy pension snake.
And he did a good job, right? He kept us from having it get exponentially worse. So Tier 1 is pensions prior to
2011.
Right.
Okay.
January 1st, 2012, it changed. And so anybody...
Which made sense because it was going down, it was spiraling down. So we have to tweak it, right? So let's tweak it so this next group is going to get less money. But then that's where the complication comes with Social Security, right? Because the pension might not equal what they get for Social Security. So you got a whole other animal.
And so there are some units of state government. A lot of people don't know this. Teachers is the most prominent one. Teachers don't get Social Security unless they've had an outside job. So 100% of what a retired teacher depends on is the state of Illinois.
My mom was a Chicago school teacher.
Yep.
All about it. Yeah.
And so most people don't know that. Most people think they get Social Security and that. Nope. Some other state functioning jobs do, but not for teachers.
And some railroad pensions, they get and they don't get Social Security, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so there is, I believe it's in the ERISA law that was passed in the early 1970s. And what that said is if you have a supplemental plan where you're not getting Social Security, that supplemental plan, pension in other words, needs to meet a certain minimum benefit that Social Security would have provided if they were in that system. And it's been suggested that especially with teachers, that won't be enough. So we are potentially facing fines and penalties and arrears of money we should have been putting in all the way back to 2012, January 1st. Now, the issue...
We've been taking it up the rears, if you don't mind me saying that.
Yeah. And one of the problems that was created too from tier 1 to tier 2 is they put a longer timeline into place, and the issue specific to firefighters, I don't know about you, but I don't need a 62-year-old firefighter climbing up the ladder trying to rescue my wife.
So it's 52 building. For them, right? Or 55?
It was. And now it's a longer, and we're trying to fix that so that it's reasonable.
Okay.
Firefighters beat up their bodies. Police beat up their bodies. We need to be more cognizant that they can't work to age 65. So there have been some adjustments made, but the funding and the math and how that works is something that still needs to be closed up.
Okay.
There were a couple proposals that wound up. I think the last one I saw, I'm foggy on all the numbers because, like you said, we passed over 100 bills the last day, and this one did not make it to the front, but I believe the cost was $400 million this year, and that just wasn't there to be able to solve the problem across all of them. But there was a proposal by Democrat Representative Kifowit out of Aurora that had a very low cost that would have fixed a lot of these, but she wasn't able to get it called by the speaker in front of anything. So there are a ton of pension proposals that are being talked about right now to fix tier 2 because it's also a disincentive from people going to work in the public space. So I got to see what the plan is because we've had too many sweetheart giveaways that have devastated our pension program now. So we need to do what's right by the workers who have been given a promise. We need to see what that actual solution looks like that's being proposed.
Yeah, and I just wanted to get to this. 96 bills passed in the final 24 hours of the Illinois lawmakers session there. Similar rush happened last year. During that dash at the end of the session, lawmakers had only 26 seconds per page to read 3,389 pages of budget proposals. That meant they'd have to review about $616,000 worth of state spending every second.
Yeah.
So how can you expect to be voted on this when there used to be a rule where you have to read it 3 times, right?
Correct.
And now it's just kind of pushing all this stuff through on the last day. I mean, literally at the last moment.
Yeah. And House Republicans have filed with or Senate Republicans a lawsuit in the Illinois Supreme Court to try to address that. Yep. Yeah, you can find an article about it on our website. And the Supreme Court, again, the Illinois Democrat-controlled Supreme Court kicked the can the last time this came up and said, we aren't going to actually pay attention to whether it was read on 3 days. Instead, we're just going to ask the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate whether it had. What? You're just taking their word for it? It's very obvious. It's time-stamped. We can tell you it wasn't done on 3 separate days. It's in violation of the Constitution. So the Supreme Court kicked the can, and we've got a problem with that. And you're seeing it in this. And I get a lot of Illinoisans that are frustrated. It's why I generally vote no, vote red. My red button has been worn out 3 times now.
All right, very good. All right, Dan, what else you got?
Following the fire, the multi-tenant building on Greenbrier, which was just over a week ago, displaced 16 people. The city of DEKALB is now working with local agencies to support people affected. The fire cost $50,000 in damage. Building is uninhabitable. Emergency assistance included transportation to a local hotel arranged by Family Service Agency, which is seeking grant funding to extend stays for displaced people. American Red Cross and DeKalb Township have provided meals and gift cards, while the fire department and building division are coordinating repairs with the property owner. Donations of money and gift cards are being accepted through the Family Service Agency to help people.
That's great. Yeah, so go to Family Service Agency. Now, they're not accepting food or just monetary donations, right? Monetary and gift cards.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm going to put my insurance agent hat on for a second. Folks who rent should have renter's insurance.
It's not that much, right? I've been hearing that my whole life.
Less than $100 a month or $100 a year. Yeah. Renters should have renter's insurance.
Because Dan's got that golden earring record collection he wants to keep. Now, Dan also just lost his shirt on the Indiana Pacers. He had bet the house on that they were going to win.
Is that why you're wearing the Thunder shirt?
But I see sports betting is going to increase by 40%.
I got a family member who works for the Thunder.
Okay.
I was torn because I got a lot of Indiana friends.
But we're jacking up cigarettes $1 and then gambling because we figure what people, these are bad things, right? So let's go ahead and screw the gamblers. So 40% though, that's quite a little markup.
Because it's a per bet fee. So you could have $1 bet and you're still paying the same per bet fee. Yeah. Okay. And then once you read, I believe it's $20 million in total bets, it goes up another threshold. There's a lawsuit that DraftKings and FanDuel, I believe, are bringing, maybe with a couple other entities, to challenge that because of how it was passed and the legality. And I support that. Listen, I was.
But will the morality issue come into the fact that it's gambling? So let's go ahead. Let's screw them. They're just gamblers anyway.
That's just it. Right now, you're quickly seeing that this is a thing that's out there. My biggest concern is how they are working intentionally. They will argue it's unintentional. How they're working to attract young males into it, who wind up getting addicted to it. Yeah. It's all about young men. And during a hearing that we had this spring, they said, no, it's not. You can't get on our system until it's 21. I promise you, every other player in a high school locker room has a betting app on his phone.
Yeah.
Right? They're using their brother's name, dad's name, and they are getting targeted, just like the old smoking ads used to be, right? And I think that's the heart of the problem. This tax increase on sports betting came out of the last minute because they needed $2 billion more. And it's not right. It's unfair. It's going to devastate the sports betting. And the problem with that is the traditional sports betting dollars that come in go to support the capital projects that Illinois spends on. So we're not going to be able to build the roads and the buildings and the support in our communities because we're now diminishing the amount of money we're able to do that.
And we're killing the golden goose, really. I mean, essentially.
We are. Yes.
All right, Coach Dan, there goes your betting. Now you want to do it. I kid about that.
Well,
now there's some pending issues that I was going to ask. Or Dan, do you have another story? I'm sorry, I'm bogarting all this time.
Well, I'm dying to ask Jeff about who's running. Who's running for governor?
Well, yeah, because Pritzker is just determined. I see
Governor Pritzker is running for a third term.
Yeah.
I know your colleague in Geneva.
Dan Ugasti. Yeah.
Is he running?
He is. You know, what's funny about the process is until they announce, they are exploring the possibility. Okay. And the reason most people say that, I'm exploring the opportunity, they want to see who else is out there. They want to see if they have support from other Republicans, from fundraisers and that type of thing. So Dan has announced that he is considering the opportunity. And I believe he wanted to have a decision by mid-July, if I'm not mistaken. Similarly, we have Representative Jed Davis, who represents the southern part of DeKalb County near Sandwich, has said that he's interested in running for the 14th Congressional District. He's one of my peers in the House. And so he's looking at that. Again, just looking. We have very few names out there that are being circulated right now. No one on our side of the aisle has come out and announced. And I think that's part of what we saw from the last time. The first time out, Governor Pritzker spent $172 million in the Illinois races the year he ran first. The second time, it was $156 or $152 million. We have made a mockery by the amount of money one man has spent on our independence within our ability to govern ourselves. And they can swamp you. You know, if you money in politics. All right, let's break it down. To send a postcard, I've got 60,000 households in my district. To send a postcard to half of them, 30,000 people, is going to cost about 80 cents per unit. So that's about, what, $26,000, $27,000 per mailer. That's a lot of money. And you see most of these show up in the mailboxes. You're getting 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 of them. It is absolutely incredible. So Democrats wind up drowning you with negative messages. And you can't get your voice through. So announcements have been sparse. Most of the ones I've seen, like myself, I'm running for re-election. Most people are running for re-election, and I haven't seen any big headlining names yet on either side, really, of who's actually in.
I have to mention my nephew, and maybe you knew him, Jeff, Adam Angievsky, very difficult name to say.
Yeah.
He started Open Books in Illinois with the transparency and the golden parachutes and everything. Unfortunately, we just lost him, but why can't we find a guy like him? Adam was just solid. All
He
the way
ran
through.
a time or two,
He
if
did.
I'm
He
not
ran, He ran
mistaken.
for governor
Yeah.
2 times ago. But
Yeah.
so there are quality people out there, right? We just got to find them.
How do you overcome $152 billion of spending? Last time we had Richard Irvin, who was running in the primary. In the Republican primary, Governor Pritzker spent $32 million of his own money in a Republican primary to support Darren Bailey because he knew he could beat Darren Bailey. His polling, after the fact, I'd heard from some campaign people on his side, his polling could not figure out a way to lose by less than 6 points to Richard Irvin. Right?
Wow.
So had Irvin won the primary with that, we would have a Republican governor, Richard Irvin, right now, not Pritzker.
Really?
So, yeah, and we have Republicans who argue, well, he wasn't Republican enough, he wasn't conservative enough. My question back to them is, well, would you rather have a Republican in the governor's mansion or our current governor? Right? We see how it's going.
Yeah. All right. Now, I want to lighten up here a little bit, and then Dan's going to do a news quiz question as well. But we try to make it as much like the morning shows. We used to have a bunch of birthdays. But two cool things that you said that are pending now, bills that you're concerned about, I guess would be the word. A bill establishing the process of equipping school buses with seatbelts. And I've heard this for years, whether the kids should have seatbelts on or not. You hear about bus accidents too, but then if there's a fire on the bus, the kids can't get out of the seatbelts. Where does that stand right now? Just a quick answer.
I believe it's waiting for governor's signature, and I was one of the chief co-sponsors of that. From the Cary Grove bus accident has always kind of stuck with me. And I have been told by people that seatbelts might not have been the answer because kids wouldn't have been able to get out of the way. But in most instances, I think it's a good policy.
All right, very good. I like that quick answer. And then, of course, something near and dear to me, we did the suicide prevention show on our radio station. I'm going to continue doing that here on the podcast. But this is one of the most difficult subjects you say here. The bill that allows patients giving a diagnosis of 6 months to live to be prescribed lethal medication, essentially taking their own lives.
Yeah.
And boy, I bet you spend a lot of sleepless nights trying to figure out that one.
So, I was bedside for part of the process for both my grandmother and my grandfather passing away, as well as my dad who came home with hospice, and he lingered longer than we thought he would. I think it was 4 or 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, after being home. Anybody who's been through that has a story, right? So first off, it's very emotional, very personal to everybody who's gone through the process. What we have to look at as state legislators is what kind of playing field, what kind of environment does that create for the people that are engaged in this? And I fully support our hospice folks. My mother-in-law is a hospice nurse, and she said, I absolutely support a bill that allows that to happen. My concern comes in, and again, I'm in the insurance industry, but what if a health insurer says, we're only going to pay this long, and then you have a choice? Right?
Okay.
You can take the pill, and we'll save you all this money and all this heartache, or continue on. Not that they would be that heartless,
right?
But where does that encouragement of like, hey, you don't have to spend $300 million to stay alive for another 3 months, and people start to think that. I mean, whether it's the doctor, whether it's the insurance company, whether it's family friends saying, hey, why don't you make this easy on your bride? It's a slippery slope. We have to be very, very careful about it. And I don't know that the parameters were in place in this bill that I was comfortable with.
All right, very good. Dan, what are your thoughts on that? Because again, it's a very, I know you go to the Newman Center. We talked to Father Black. I don't know if you knew Father Black, who used to be at the Newman Center. He used to come on the radio station all the time. And he came on the suicide prevention show, and I asked him, being raised a Catholic, that we learned as a Catholic that if you take suicide, that's a mortal sin, and you're going to go to hell. Or purgatory is the best you can do there. And then I talked to Father Black, and he says, no, God is a forgiving God, and God would never punish you for being that trouble. I get emotional just thinking about it. But Dan, what do you think about that? Because again, it's such a difficult subject. I remember Kevorkian was around, and with the suicide machine, and just your brief thoughts on that.
Well, culture of life, I think you have to preserve it as much as you can. God is merciful. So I think that as far as people who may commit suicide, we don't know where people are.
No.
Really. I mean, you don't know. That's between, God is merciful. I believe that. And I think it's important to support the culture of life, no matter what. I mean, there are scientists and doctors and physicians and theologians who, they can articulate this so much better than I can.
Uh-huh.
And there are things that that I can't think of everything personally. So I rely on the experts a little bit.
Okay.
In
All right.
addition,
Again,
in
it's a
addition
very
to
difficult
gut.
question. Yeah. Again, it's just like you said, you can't get there. I lost my best friend to suicide, and he went into his garage with his toys and turned the engine on, knowing that his mom was going to find him later on. And I wanted to yell at him and say, "Well, how the hell could you do that, knowing that your mom was going to find you?" But you can't get to where he's at. You just can't do that. So, but that's for another time. But lighten thing up here, we got birthdays. I'm so thrilled, Jeff, that we're still almost 3 months doing these podcasts now. And I said on our Facebook page, who's got birthdays coming up in July, and got a whole bunch. So just want to tell people, like we used to do on the show, Missy Garman, a wonderful lady, always helped us out.
Good people.
Her birthday is on July 1st, so happy birthday to Missy. Anna Marie Coveney, who does with the DeKalb Women's Club, she's also having a birthday on the 2nd. Mike DeVito from My Insurance Group, I know you know him. We talked about
we were in Rotary.
What a great guy he is, and his son, the 2 sons, just fabulous people. His birthday's on the 2nd as well. Liz Feeney's birthday is on July 3rd, and Bill Feeney's is on the 8th. Ken Donald called in Uncle Sam. He goes, Uncle Sam's birthday, on the 4th. Thanks for that, Ken Donald.
Next year's 250. Next year's 250.
That's right. I want to talk about that. Teresa Sebes, it's her birthday on the 7th, and then we'll just go up to the 14th. Garrett Hayden will have a birthday on the 14th, and Evie Remick will be 9 years old on July 8th, and Melissa Remick will be 40 on the 31st. And they wrote down the 40 there, Melissa, so don't get mad about that. But it's fun to be able to do.
Happy birthday to everybody. That's fantastic.
Appreciate that. Dan, we got a big family. You got a birthday coming up with the guys?
I think they've all passed, actually.
Okay.
They're all in the spring.
The birthdays, not the individual.
Yeah, let's make that clear here. And then sports, we have the Daily Chronicle Player of the Year, Sycamore Bella Jacobs. And that's right, you're a Sycamore guy.
Yeah, very excited. She had a tremendous year.
She really did. So kudos to Bella. And
great program over there.
Daily Chronicle Girl Athlete of the Year is Allie Pogel. And I know Allie set the all-time scoring record in basketball, and she's also a soccer player and a softball
Kingston,
player.
right? Yeah. So, another great athletic program up there.
Yeah, kudos to her for a great job there. But again, we try to make it like the morning show as much as we can. And we used to do the news quiz, Dan, and this is for... Oh, wait, you can ask me now. What
okay, yeah. What are you giving away?
Well, funny you should ask. The T-Bone is the name, by the way. And it's a gift certificate to Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more. You can be the winner when you play the news quiz here on the TD Ryan Unleashed podcast.
So monetary donations and gift cards are being accepted through this agency to help the 16 people who were displaced by that fire on Greenbrier. What's the name of the agency?
All right, what's the name of the agency?
Accepting the monetary donations.
If you can tell us that, and please make a donation if you can. TD Ryan 2001 Unleashed. TD Ryan 2001 at yahoo.com. TD Ryan 2001 at yahoo.com. If you got the right answer, we'll send you that. We're working on getting some more prizes in the old prize closet, but that's what we got right now. And of course, we want to end on a positive note. I want to point out again something else that you had in your news release, Jeff, that if Illinois had grown by the average rate of the 6 states we border between 2000 and 2020, there'd be an additional 722,000 more people calling Illinois home. That's about 451,000 more jobs and generating $26 billion more to our economy. So we see other states all around us doing quite well.
Yes.
And yet here we are.
Yes.
Losing people.
Yes.
It's very sad to see that.
Detroit,
but I should point out, DeKalb County is kind of an exception, though, right? Because I talked to the mayor of Cortland, and I know is doing well, and we have new housing starts in DeKalb. So there are exceptions to the rule in Illinois, right?
In Illinois, yes, but as a whole, and those numbers are from 2010 to 2020, so a 10-year census. I wanted to have it certified. It just speaks to the environment in Illinois. You talk to a lot of people, and not everybody wants to leave. There's plenty of people that are committed to staying in Illinois. But you know this, and everybody listening knows this. People think about, should I move to another state? And it happens more now than it ever did. Illinois is a great state. We have tremendous possibility. And if we had 722,000 more people, we'd have a lot of our problems solved.
There you go. Well, let's leave it at that. Dan, I'm going to put you a little quiz here. Who said one flag, one land, one heart, one hand, one nation evermore?
James Cagney and Yankee Doodle Dandy?
Yeah. No, Oliver Wendell Holmes. Said, that's a quote there that Jeff had on us. Tell us about that, Jeff.
Supreme Court.
We're celebrating 250 years.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and for those of you that know Michelle Donahoe up at the DeKalb History Center.
She was my podcast guest last week. Yeah.
She's a fantastic representative of DeKalb and all of our past and all of our future at this point. I was able to get her an appointment to the Commission for Illinois for the celebration of the 250th of the Declaration of Independence. So I'm very excited about some of the plans she's kind of intimated are coming, and stay tuned. We got good local people helping the entire state celebrate.
Well, one of my favorite quote is those that don't learn I forgot it now. Are doing to repeat it. What is that? But it seems like we're doing that in Illinois now. But we're going to get another opportunity here. The best way we can change things is to vote, right? And so now we just got to wait till this midterms and then the election and vote.
I'm going to put a caveat on that,
All right.
because we're going to go back to what we talked about from 2022, having more Republican House votes than Democrat House votes. What we need is a non-gerrymandered map. We need a map like the state of Iowa does, where it's drawn by units of government instead of politicians.
I think no argument here. And want to thank you, as always, for all your stuff. Of course, the big 4th of July celebration. I'm working for the DeKalb Park District right now. I want to point out all the great things they do. Got the race, they got the entertainment, they got the music, of course, and then the fireworks as well. Dan, 4th of July, big holiday in your household. What do you do?
Our friends, the Foleys, are having a party in Sycamore. There's going to be 1 million kids, slip and slides, and
There you go.
beanbag toss, and
Sparklers or no sparklers?
I don't know. It's just it's very family. And then at night, I got to take them to see the fireworks
There you
somewhere.
go. Okay.
So, how about you, Jeff?
We're going to go my sister's house and have a little family celebration in her pool.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be a day to cool off, I think.
That's wonderful. And I also, we also used to do the OBITS, and I want to mention Elizabeth and Liz Sauber, who passed away in Sycamore. Do you know the lady? The very nice lady. Because, as we get old, Dan, you'll find this. As you get old, you read the OBITS now. The newspaper comes.
Jeff and I are the same age.
You learn about
We're right behind you, TD.
right. But you learn about how wonderful the people are, and she and her husband ran the Ben-Hur restaurant in Sycamore. Where is that? Is that where,
I can't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember it. I was here in the 90s with my grandparents living at their place, and I can't remember where it was or what it was.
But you just mentioned the hospice. She was a volunteer for the DeKalb County Hospice, and we know what a tough gig that is, an important gig. A member of the Kishwaukee Ladies Auxiliary. She delivered Meals on Wheels. Again, another thing you mentioned there. And was a Eucharistic minister going to hospitals and nursing homes well into her 90s. Now, my grandmother was a candy striper till she was 96. And I tell you, that's really special when you get that age and still want to give back like that.
Yeah, I had somebody recently ask me, how many summers do you think you have? So I just turned 52 and I look at my family, how many summers do you have? And you're halfway through this one.
Yeah.
Right. And that really kind of puts how important our everyday is.
So we had a friend who said your life is like a tape measure. And if you think about it, you got the tape measure and he goes, you're here, pointing to almost the end of the tape measure. I'm like, all right, that's true. But think about all that fun time you had in the first part of that tape measure.
We're blessed to be here.
Well, we're blessed to have you, Jeff. Again, the kind of a straight shooter way. This is not a Republican versus Democrat thing. We want to just get some answers, and you're always forthright with those answers, so we appreciate that.
And listen, I appreciate it. And again, everybody at home, I walked in not knowing what we were going to talk about at all. So I really appreciate the really frank conversation that we've always been able to have, and I think that's what the voters of Illinois should expect.
All right, well, great. Dan, as always, we appreciate your efforts, man. Keep up the good work. Take care of that brood of yours.
Thanks. I think the voters of Illinois just want a problem solver.
Yes. And enough with the taxes already.
I think that's what the people want. We want problem solvers.
A big thanks to Ethan Davis, my nephew, for making the show possible. And that's TD Ryan Unleashed News Podcast number 4 with State Representative Jeff Keicher.
TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Diamond, your State Farm Insurance Agent, Pizza Villa in DeKalb, Elder Care Services of DeKalb County, The Junction Eating Place in DeKalb, and my insurance guy, Mike DeVito in Sycamore.